Hello, and welcome back to Lora's Plans. So, it is the end of week 2 of the Great Planner Experiment. And if you're new here, you may have no idea what I'm talking about. But over the course of the rest of 2022, I'm going to be experimenting in all the different planner systems that I either purchased, touched, have sitting on the shelf, and just need to revisit to level set myself on what I need in my planning system and journaling system for true functional planning versus what I want for hobby-based planning. That way, when I head into the 2023 planner launch season that's coming up rather quickly, I won't make the same mistakes that I did this time. So today, we're going to talk about subject number 1, the MakseLife flagship planner. Over the last 2 weeks, I've spent the majority of my time planning in this system, and I've tried to use it as a functional system. We've come to the end of that time period, and I wanted to share my thoughts and whether or not I think this is a plausible option for me moving into 2023, or if this one's just kind of busted. So if this is something that interests you, I'd really like for you to stick around and hear my thoughts, and if not, that's okay. There are many more planners to come in this great experiment, and maybe you'll find something you're interested in watching. Otherwise, we're going to flip this around, and I'm going to show you what happened in the MakseLife. All right, so let's dive into everything that we are talking about. With the Great Planner Experiment, the purpose was to see if I could utilize my methodology in the different type of planners that I purchased over the year. And all of these planners I either set up or touched or used for a bit of time, but I never really applied my methods as I now know work best for me to these planner systems. And so my first subject was the very first purchase last year during the planner launch season, and it was the MakseLife Vertical. Along with it, I did buy the MakseLife companion set, which I have used faithfully throughout the year and will continue using through the end of the year. This planner system was a redundancy to the MakseLife flagship planner, but for the purpose of this experiment, I went ahead and utilized this as a yearly cohesive unit so that as I move from planner to planner to planner during this experiment, I don't lose my goal setting process. But I did go ahead and include them in the MakseLife for the experiment as well. So let's talk about what happened in the MakseLife. If you watched the initial video where I checked in almost daily to show you what was happening, you know that in the first week, I was able to utilize my month on 2 pages as a pre-planning and kind of capturing space for all the appointments and activities that I needed to keep track of for the month. And I did have the ability to pre-plan in the other months of the calendar. Like I have an important internal medicine appointment for one of my dogs on July 1st. I was able to put that in. So the functionality of utilizing a pre-planning and current planning system within the 2 monthly pages, or within the monthly pages, the month on 2 page spread, that worked beautifully. And so that receives a check mark for me for my methodology. The next thing that's very important to me is to be able to have a weekly spread. Well, the MakseLife flagship system does have a weekly spread. However, this weekly spread, if you don't have a sidekick, a daily, a secondary notebook, has to also act as your daily kind of running to-do list log, rapid log. And for me, this amount of space worked okay this first week. But as I got into the second week of this planner, it was not working. And to be perfectly honest with you, Tuesday I came in and filled things in, prepped for the next day, and I never really even came back and touched it because I was finding I needed far more space than this would allow me. And I was trying too hard to find ways to fit it in. So when I started feeling frustrated, I actually ended up grabbing my sticky notes. These I buy off Amazon in multi-packs, and I keep them around the house for everyone to use. And I found that this was actually what I started grabbing instead of my sidekick notebook. The reason, I hadn't really defined what would go in the sidekick versus the MakseLife. I really hadn't set up a structure in here. It was more just to be a catch-all. And so I ended up grabbing sticky notes. And sticky notes, although I keep them around the house and stuff, they really don't work for me because I tend to lose them. I crumple them up, as you can see here. There's some information you all don't need to see. But I ended up having to kind of sort through what I wrote down on those sticky notes and stick it into this planner or this notebook because they're things that I needed to keep track of. And I hadn't found a place for them. I hadn't found a place here. I hadn't found a really defined place for them here. And so now they're just compilations of paper stuck down on paper in this notebook. And that gave me a really big clue about how I was feeling in the MakseLife. I love the idea of working with a very structured vertical planner. I tend to gravitate towards vertical planning styles. I think the aesthetic is what really draws me. But for a planner like this, I don't see it being my everyday planner. I love the goal setting system. I love the paper. I love the structure. I love the habits that are already listed on the page. But when I am working through my day, which is a blend of both work and home, there's really no separation. I have to be able to ebb and flow between notebooks and between planner systems and between taking notes for things for work, taking notes for things for home, listing out tasks that I need to do for work, listing out tasks that I need to do for home. And yes, I have my work planner that works beautifully for me. But no matter what, there's always some bleed over into my day because I structure my day with a blend of home and work. And so, although this is a beautiful planner, by Wednesday night, I just was frustrated. I didn't want to touch it, and I really didn't. I wrote these things in on Wednesday night thinking, okay, yes, I'll get them done. And the truth of the matter is, I did get all those things done, but I never came back to the planner. And that for me is a big sign that this system alone is not something that's going to work for me in 2023. So is this a possibility, or is this just a nice idea? For me, it's really not a possibility unless it has additional notebooks to go with it. And I'm not sure that I want to have the companion set, the sidekick, the personal journal, the work planner, and a stack of sticky notes around at all times. To be honest, it's too much for me. I am not a giant planner stack person. My goal of this experiment is to try to find a way to make it so that I have my work planner and my personal system kind of a little more compact, a little more comprised. Do I think it will be more than 2? Yes. But do I think it's going to be 5 or 6 different working pieces? No. I did that to myself this year and it never worked. So for now, I am happily setting aside the MakseLife flagship. It's a beautiful planner. I think it will work well if you are a person who doesn't have that blended work and life environment, remote work environment where you're doing both home and work throughout the day. I think it works really well if you're not a scribbler like me. I want to be able to scribble in my planners or in my system the different things that are going on in my head. I want to be able to just flip a page or flip a section and be able to go to scribble down notes, meal plans, shopping lists, party plans, whatnot. And although this is beautiful and it works well, for me, it would be best served, I think, more as a pre-planner or a memory planner. But as a functional life planner for me, this system just doesn't work. But it might work well for you. If you don't have those same issues that I do, this is a beautiful planner. The paper is just heavenly. Another sticky note. The paper is just heavenly. The goal setting system is one of the best that I've ever used. And I promise you, if I don't have a MakseLife planner, I will have the MakseLife companion goal setting system moving into 2023. That's not even an option. This has worked beautifully and I plan to continue it. So for now, we'll say goodbye to the MakseLife. I'm very grateful that I had this couple of weeks to really experiment with it. I was frustrated midweek, but I guess the beauty of this experiment is that I only had to take a week and a half before I realized this really wasn't a functional system. So I'm going to set the sidekick up here off to the side, and we're going to go ahead and put the MakseLife away. All right, so that's it. The Great Planner Experiment has finished with our very first subject, the MakseLife flagship planner. And I have to say, it's a beautiful planner. And if your style and your methodology works within that system, fantastic. It's one I would truly recommend. But for me, it's really not a plausible planner. And so I'm going to go ahead and move on. In the next video, I'm going to go ahead and flip through how I set up my A5 rings. Well, actually, how I just modified the already existing setup of my A5 rings that I did back in January to ensure that I hit all of the elements that I outlined as important for me in my planning system. So if that's something that interests you, keep on the lookout. It should be coming up soon. Otherwise, I just want to say happy June, mid-June. We're almost ready to start July. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Until then, I will see you next time.